57% of worldwide fatalities due to natural disasters occur in Asia and the Pacific. There are four types of natural disasters: earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, and storms were responsible for 91% of total economic loss. The effects of climate change are becoming more obvious as extreme weather events become more frequent and more severe. Asia and the Pacific is a particularly vulnerable region. A common problem with natural disasters is emergency preparedness. This can refer to a lack of awareness of hazards by the general public or to an absence of a local disaster management plan. Natural disasters can have immediate impacts such as disease outbreak, death, disability, or mental health. Our chosen country is Taiwan, and Taiwan is one of the most economically vulnerable countries in the world. Taiwan has a population of 23.4 million people. It is the 17th most densely populated country in the world. Two-thirds of the population lives in urban areas, yet 70% of Taiwan is covered in mountainous slopeland. The two biggest natural disaster threats to Taiwan are typhoons and earthquakes. While destructive earthquakes hit about once every 30 years, serious typhoons occur around 4 times seasonally. They are the greatest source of economic loss and bring about greater annual death tolls and injuries in Taiwan. If we can better mitigate the damage of typhoons, there is a huge potential to decrease these losses. Thus, our solution focuses on typhoon disaster preparedness and risk reduction. While typhoons are an essential part of Taiwan's ecology, they can also destroy homes and livelihood. Typhoons can bring strong winds and torrential rain, which trigger floods and landslides that can result in the massive loss of human lives. This was seen most recently in 2009 during Typhoon Moraca, when Shaolin Village was buried by mud flow within 2 to 3 minutes. Emergency services took nearly 26 hours to respond to the landslides. Although survivors were rescued, no enforced emergency plan to evacuate and a delay in emergency response resulted in 490 confirmed deaths. After a massive loss of life in Typhoon Moraca, a Disaster Prevention and Protection Act was passed in August 2010. It led to the creation of new emergency management offices. We visited the National Science and Technology Center for Disaster Reduction, or NCDR, to understand what resources are available in Taiwan for natural disasters. With a modest staff of only 100, NCDR need to collaborate closely with many stakeholders. They do not have enough resources to meet all needs of remote communities in Taiwan. We believe that more can be done. Although they have lofty ambitions, their limited staff means that there remains a huge gap in need that we tend to fill. For example, we need to facilitate the transfer of technical knowledge to usable, easy to understand information for the public. We also need to focus on communities that NCDR doesn't have the resources to reach. To address these current gaps, we came up with these objectives. Our goals are to reach the entire population and to use community-based techniques for hard-to-reach, high-risk communities. In addition, be confidence-based and facilitate the use of technology to increase user knowledge. Furthermore, we have to build resilience through increased community action and robust communication.
Taiwan's great potential for success in natural disaster preparedness and great risk for natural disaster-related economic loss creates a unique opportunity to design an innovative plan tailored specifically to Taiwan's diverse topography and culture. Our idea is multifaceted and adaptable enough to be applied in many countries to meet many different needs. We propose an integrative program for typhoon preparedness and risk reduction. Our program will tackle the increasing technological needs of Taiwan's urban population. It will also serve the remote and typically elderly communities who rely on lower tech, traditional modes of communication to survive typhoons. At its basis, our plan is an integrative program comprised of 2 parts, a community program and a technological solution. Each part of our plan corresponds to a different population in Taiwan. Our community program will serve the smaller remote populations. Meanwhile, our technological solution will serve the needs of the larger urban population. The majority of Taiwan's population lives in some of the most densely populated cities in the world. However, small groups of people often live in remote mountainous areas that suffer the most during natural disasters due to their lack of easy communication and access to information and relief. Often, these mountainous communities are comprised of Aboriginal people. Like in many countries, Taiwan's Aboriginal populations have been repeatedly forced to adapt to settlers in their homelands. In the past, the government has relocated groups without negotiation. Many Aboriginals are disconnected from Taiwan's urban society and lack education on disaster-related risk reduction. The resulting distrust of the government is a challenge that needs to be taken seriously. These remote communities, whether they are comprised of Aboriginal, elderly, illiterate, or a mixture of these types of disadvantaged people, need extra help in times of natural disasters because many modern forms of communication may not reach them. Using this background knowledge on the social and topographical structure of Taiwan, we have come up with the core concept of equal opportunity to survive a typhoon. We intend for our innovation to reach all parts of Taiwan's population. If you recall, our program consists of two parts, a community program and a technological solution. First, I will introduce the community program, which serves the needs of the remote populations. Step 1. As our first step, we will utilize residency maps of high-risk landslide areas to determine the most vulnerable mountainous populations in Taiwan. These maps will be used for check-ins during town-wide evacuations and to know who is missing following a natural disaster. Step 2. Next, we will use evidence-based theory on community training programs to implement community-led interventions in these towns. Because many of these towns will have large Aboriginal population, we will spend 6 months to a year earning the trust of the town leaders and convincing them to trust our intentions. After we have earned this trust and respect, we will train them to construct community committees, all of which serve different purposes related to typhoon preparedness. Step 3. We will set up typhoon preparedness committees. Of these committees, one will be designated for evacuation organization if there were a landslide predicted in the town. Step 4. We will also install town-wide sirens. Currently in Taiwan, there are only sirens for air raid drills. Yet in other countries around the world, sirens are used to signal imminent danger and to alert people to take action quickly. In mountainous towns, cell phone usage and availability is limited, and sirens will be more efficient. Like a tornado siren, our sirens will trigger the residents to return home and wait for more information from their typhoon preparedness committee. Once at home, the committees will go door to door and check in on all of the townspeople. These committees will then report back to the national government. It's important to note that evacuations in remote areas need to occur much earlier than those of urban populations because mountainous terrain is difficult to navigate. Yet, in the current system in Taiwan, the complicated evacuation system makes evacuations in these areas very inefficient. Step 5. Following a natural disaster, remote towns can use our website to request for humanitarian aid, including volunteers and monetary donations. This part of our program is sustainable over the long term. It is likely to be accepted and encouraged by the locals because it will focus on their input. As has been evidenced by researchers recently, community-led programs tend to be more effective than programs led by outside officials. Giving the community members the ability to decide their own needs, after providing them with adequate information on their vulnerability to typhoons, will empower them and make them more likely to act in health-promoting ways. Now, our teammate Ken will discuss the technological solution of our program.
The second part of our solution concerns the information exchange between stakeholders, communities, and resource providers. Our contact from the NCDR believes that a major challenge during disaster response is both having too much and too little information at hand. We realized to solve this problem, there must be an integrated solution that facilitates efficient multi-way communication that convert data into information we can act on. The solution we propose is a multi-platform service that connects the government, nonprofits, and multiple communities together. Official information on disaster prevention and alerts are currently scattered across multiple federal agencies. By integrating these services into one place, information becomes more interpretive to the public, leading to less confusion and ambiguity. While multimedia information is best distributed, with modern technology, we recognize that a wide spectrum of technology literacy exists. For urgent announcements such as alert for evacuation and individual check-ins, a variety of channels must be utilized to ensure maximized distribution. Another important point to consider is the content of the alert messages. The message cannot be too detailed or too ambiguous.
Our app will create a channel for NPOs and local governments to broadcast requests for the specific resources they need, creating a forum for the public to directly sign up for tasks they are willing to help with, and displaying the type of resources most in need. Also allowed coordinators to maximize the effectiveness of the resources at hand. As for our community program, it will build community resilience using a community-based, culturally sensitive bottom-up approach to needs. We also aim to increase the efficiency of disaster-related communication by creating a multi-directional, low-tech yet clear and fast system. Combined, the two parts of our program will have a huge impact on many different stakeholders, particularly local mountainous communities, especially Aboriginal people with distrust of the government. These people will gain increased community resilience, decreased loss in the case of a typhoon, increased bridging capital, and increased knowledge of and access to relief following a typhoon. It will also increase their perceived accessible resources, hope, and self-efficacy before and after a typhoon. The government will benefit from having easy access to communication with local mountainous communities, which will lead to increased efficiency and better anticipation of what to expect and prepare before arriving at the town. Additionally, nonprofits will benefit from more efficient allocation of resources. Accessibility, allocation, and coordination of resources are challenging tasks constantly faced by humanitarian aid coordinators. This is seen several times after disaster occurred in Taiwan, with volunteers flooding into the impacted area but finding themselves unsure of what to do. Our app will give them an easy platform for organization. Next, our teammate Zhixiang will introduce the timeline of our program.
To realize our idea, we plan to begin the development of the integrated platform and community program in the first year, establishing collaborations with stakeholders including remote communities, government, and NPOs. In the second year, we plan to launch the service to the general public and maximize installments and usage via public service announcements and visit local communities for training. In the third year, a maintenance program is created to check for both software and infrastructure reliability. The project will be funded by our agency along with non-profit groups in Taiwan, such as the Red Cross Society of Republic of China and the research universities, such as National Taiwan University. We estimate it will cost USD 2 million for our app and USD 3 million for the community program. To get our plan off the ground, we will require collaborations with the funding agencies and the support of local communities. Given Taiwan's recent history of inter-organizational projects, collaborations, and strains on innovation, it is feasible that many governmental and non-governmental agencies would be interested in working with us for this project. Next, our teammate Jessica will conclude the presentation.
We will need to evaluate our activities in many ways. Our plan is to use already existing surveys so that we have an evidence-based approach with comparable measures of outcomes. Our evaluations will cover 3 categories: health and wellness surveys, assessment of accuracy and trust of official government messages and information, and user feedback to assess usability. From the scientific side, we will continue with ongoing risk assessment tools to evaluate the likelihood and impact of landslides pre- and post-implementation. Our main measure of outcome will be to evaluate mental health and social perceptions of vulnerability, social capital, knowledge, awareness, and capabilities at baseline, midterm, and final evaluation. These perception surveys should be done regularly. In the confusion of Taiwan's questioned country status, Taiwan is susceptible to being forgotten by the international community. Taiwan faces the unique challenges of having to be self-sufficient in protecting its own people. As with most other countries, natural disaster policies in Taiwan have been reactive rather than proactive. Our program will address current weaknesses by ensuring that the most vulnerable communities are also the most empowered, and by facilitating the transfer of knowledge from highly technical agencies to the layperson. We want all residents to have equal opportunity to survive a typhoon. Taiwan is a great country to choose because Taiwan is rich in research agencies ready to collaborate with other organizations on the international and national level. Funding Taiwan will not only help Taiwan, but it will also help the field of risk disaster reduction and management reach its full potential. By putting Taiwan in the spotlight, neighboring countries can learn from Taiwan's example. From National Taiwan University, thank you for listening to our presentation, and we thank you for your consideration.
Okay.